This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Welcome to the Patriot Barbie podcast. This show is made possible by Spreely Media. Download the Freedom Hub app today and join the free speech movement. I want to thank the people and the companies that keep my show going. All my sponsors can be found on patriotbarbie.com on my shop page. Century H2O, water systems for your home that provide clean, toxic-free, fluoride-free, and pharmaceutical-free drinking water for your family and pets for under $300. Dylan's Restaurants has been a proud podcast partner for years, and the owner is my personal friend. With 4 locations throughout Arizona, you'll always find one to dine at and love, especially the zoo. Well, especially the ranch. Well, maybe the one floating on Lake Pleasant. Dang it, they're all good. Support your freedom-loving businesses, and please check out Dylan's Restaurants. Small business owners, claim your employee retention tax credit for 2020 and 21 with an accountant you can trust. If you don't know what this is, you could be missing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars. Go to patriotbarbie.com and click on my partners page to read up. My Freedom Cart, a conservative-owned, made-in-America, toxic-free company that lets you shop online and delivers everything to your front door. Clean products, protein, snacks, hair care, makeup, toiletries. Dude, ditch Amazon, keep the perks, and support a pro-life and pro-freedom company. MyFreedomCart.com. My Beautiful Smile is brought to you by Dr. Daniel Slyke. His dental team is passionate, detailed, gentle, and clearly very talented. My entire smile has been restored to stunning, and I owe it all to him. He's right here in Scottsdale, and consults are free. Go to patriotbarbie.com, look him up, and schedule your free consultation. Are you worried about spike proteins? If not, you should be. Get the spike formula developed by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough from the Wellness Company by going to twc.health/patriotbarbie. Listeners of my podcast can use code patriotbarbie at checkout for a discount. You guys, once again, you can find all my partners, my makeup line, my Patriot wine, my merch company, and the Freedom Cart at patriotbarbie.com under the shop page. Now, are you ready to get started? Let's go. Welcome to the Patriot Barbie podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey Graham, author and conservative activist. I love Jesus. I love America. I'm a proud wife, mom of 3, and I'm having bold and witty conversations with America's patriots, the ones that cancel culture desperately want to blacklist. Trust me, I've been there. In 2020, I defied government lockdowns in Oregon, reopened my salon, and became an icon of freedom. I've been targeted by government and raging liberals every day since, and I refuse to back down. Patriots, I'm here to tell you, your values are worth fighting for. The Patriot Barbie podcast starts now. Hey guys, welcome to the Patriot Barbie podcast. About a month ago, I had the honor of being a guest on TLM Nation with my new friend, Tracy. And gosh, we had so much fun. Well, I don't know if it was fun. We dug into some pretty deep fun, and dirty stuff. But women empowerment, man, like finding strong women who are making a move in the nation, doing what they're called to do, finding their purpose is like, it's so empowering to align yourself with those kind of women. And so I'm really excited to bring Tracy here today and let her share a little bit about what she's doing and how she's making a mark in the world. And there's a lot. You are a certified transformational life coach. You're a licensed brain health trainer. You're a 4th generation entrepreneur, an author, a speaker, all the things. So, but one of the things that most intrigues me is that you work mostly with Gen Z, which such a different generation.
They are. But you know what? I really truly believe that they are built different too. I do. I think that they have so much more resources and abilities.
Yeah.
But we're the leaders. So, and parents and parenting, I work with a lot of parents. I have the radio show Raising Greatness, which is a big thing, resource for parents. It's a Christian radio. But the thing I think about Gen Z is that they're at a very pivotal time to where they have to grasp onto this information. I've had some people tell me, you're kind of radical in this way. And I'm like, yeah, because you have a very short window to actually impact your kids before culture gets a hold of them.
So what is Gen Z? Help me out because I'm older. And
1997 to 2015.
97 to 2015. So they were born, Gen Z was born with the internet already existing, right?
And phones.
Like it was like AOL startup, but still.
I mean, MySpace, Musical.ly, those kinds of video type stuff like that was kind of the thing. And then 2015, then after 2015 is Gen Z Alpha.
Okay.
Which is, those kids are kind of getting it quicker, especially the young boys. They're ironically, most of them of Gen Z, the guys have sworn off dating. Because,
oh my gosh.
Because the girls are just gone down that path of, it's sad because I always say pornography ruined young men and social media ruined young women.
Yeah.
OnlyFans and all that stuff. But that goes back to, again, the character, the drive, what their foundation is. And that's why I love working with these kids and these families, because if we look forward, our question is always, the best thing to start with is a strong family.
Right.
But what are we doing as a culture and as a community and as families to create that? What are we being intentional about?
Right.
And that requires moms. There's a lot we got to do. There's a lot of things that we have to shift and change too.
Well, especially if you can already, like, you just laid out what the problem is. So if you already know what the problem is, you can go back and try to correct it. So the Gen Z Alpha dude said, I'm laying off dating. Why? Because girls are weird and like all they care about is being a boss babe, or they're obsessed with their social media.
It's very hypersexualized too.
They sleep around now.
Yeah. Sleeping around. What their body count's like 10 by the time they're 22.
It's crazy.
And it's crazy because the guys have. Somebody asked me this. They go, well, what comes first, T? The guys got to level up or the girls got to level up. I said, well, you're the leaders. The men have got to be the leaders in this country and this family and this dating. So if you're not able to lead a girl and say no when she comes forward for you and proposes sex or whatever it is, then you're part of the problem. And then you have to ask yourself, we all know there's guys that are willing to have sex with one girl, but they want to marry this girl. Right?
Yeah.
They don't want to marry their Friday night. They want to marry the Sunday morning.
Right.
So then you have to go, well, what does that person possess? Who is that person and what are their traits? What have they been equipped with family-wise? And because families look so different today in today's world, and you've got single moms raising boys, and I'm sorry, you can't do it. You cannot raise a strong, masculine young man. Typically, you overmother and underfather at that point. So then, what is the influence then to create that to be that's because then that will perpetuate generationally.
Right.
And then our sexual energy as humans is the most powerful energy in the world. It's the most powerful energy. So if you think about it, the world is telling you 18 to 23, have sex, legalized weed, drink whenever you want to, underage drinking, on social media, at least 8 hours a day.
And
average.
all of it empowers you. All of it makes you exactly who you want to be. Everyone's doing it.
So all your energy that is meant to create and build and sustain your life for your future wife and family is being completely dismantled. And it's all by design. And so the fun thing is when they come into the coaching studio, I have this massive whiteboard and we just start downloading. We start downloading on what their internal dialogue is, what their biases are, what they believe they lack or what they need. If they're going off into the world of college, please God, why?
I know.
But if you're going there, let's talk about it,
Let's whiteboard which ones not to go to at least.
Because a lot of times it's just that slippery slope where we're supposed to.
Yeah.
You go to high school, you go to college, and then, but what education today is and why families are so blindsided is that it literally educates the uniqueness and the individuality right out of you. So because I meet a lot of kids that come in my studio. So you read that a fourth generation entrepreneur. I have a lot of young kids who have great ideas, but they're shut down. You know, they're shut
So
down. Their
sad.
creativity is shut down. So when they come in our space, I want to know more about what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because even the journey of, I mean, you know, coming up with an idea, conceptualizing it,
Yeah.
running it out, sourcing it, building it, creating it, that is such an education in yourself.
Right.
In discovering who you're becoming.
Not to mention, it takes a massive amount of discipline,
Mm-hmm.
hope, and perseverance to say I'm going to hit obstacles at every single one of those steps.
Right.
And I still believe in the concept that I created. I still
Right.
do. Well, the government doesn't want those kind of people either.
Absolutely not.
Free thinkers.
Absolutely. And parents a lot of times don't know what to do with those kinds of kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was lucky because I was raised by an entrepreneur home. So for me, my dad was the guy that was like, you want to do that? Figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, he was never the father that, and my mom was just, both my parents are amazing, but my dad wasn't the guy that said, no, that's not going to work. He's like, how is it going to work?
Yeah.
So I was met with that language automatically. So when I see the kids in here and I hear that I can't, it's not going to work, what's the point? Go to college, get a degree, it's safe. I'm like, it's not safe.
Yeah.
It's the least safe place to be.
We've discovered in 2020 that most of your jobs were not safe.
They were not safe. They were not
They're still
essential.
not
They were
safe
not
either.
essential.
Yeah.
No. And so that's why I always tell kids, you know, sometimes what you want to do, you have to create too.
Yeah.
You know, and then they lack the confidence, they lack the resilience, they lack the grit for sure. You know, and so we work on all that, you know, within the families. And so, if I'm lucky enough when a parent hires me to work with their kids, the parents come into the mix too, because I can't just speak to one and then they go back to that same environment. So I get to work with moms and dads, kids, if it's extended family, whoever has influence. You know, I've
Yeah.
even moved in with some families, which is pretty crazy.
Oh my gosh.
And which is fun because we work on nutrition, we have a physical challenge, then we work on communication, but you start to realize that it's holistic. You know, it's like if you take one person and you put them in an environment that's not conducive to what their growth, and they're not solid in their conviction, you can see what's happening to our kids today.
Yeah.
It's the trans movement. It's like these kids are not solid in who they are, so they're not willing to speak out against something and be convicted. And if they are, then of course they're canceled. They're this. I have clients that are dealing with this right now. But I told them, I go, but the culture is what changed and what shifted. And if we don't recognize that and what our foundation is, we're raising weak-minded kids. You know, and so then you go back to, my whole thing is always, what's my end goal as a parent? I always ask myself, what's my end goal? I want to raise healthy, whole, successful kids. I want to raise strong women, but I want to raise wives and mothers.
Yeah.
I want my girls to know their most important job is a wife and a mother. You know, and there's nothing demeaning in that. It's so powerful. Women,
It's a gift, not an
is.
inconvenience.
It is.
Yeah.
And you see women on social media, their kids are an accessory. You know, and I'm like, no, you have
Kim
to understand.
Kardashian.
Not to call anybody out, but hey.
No, I just had to clear my throat. That's all.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And then and so then you look at the young girls who are looking at that. And they see this, and I love it whenever people. Then we talked about the influencer versus influential.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and I said I love it whenever I met a young girl. She was 18. She was getting her hair cut next to me. This is a while ago, and she goes, I go, what do you do? We're just talking because they were telling her what I did, and I go, what do you do? She goes, oh, I'm a social media influencer.
Oh my God.
Well, then I
I have
said,
200 followers.
no, this was bad. I go, what do you influence? And she stopped dead in her tracks.
No,
She's
she has
like,
no idea.
She goes, what do you mean? I go, well, you're a social media influencer. What do you influence? And she goes, well, I don't know. I can't even leave my apartment without people taking photos of me. I go,
Oh my gosh.
But again-
I want to vomit.
it's like, what?
As an influencer, my person myself, I'm like,
But that's my point, right? It's like they don't know their why.
who is she? Are you gonna?
I can't.
Damn, I'm like, does she even have people taking photos of me? Come on.
I don't know, honestly.
That's
But it was
rough.
just the mindset
Did you
of
see how
it.
many followers she had?
I didn't even pay attention. I'm
I'm
bad.
like, is it 1.2 million? Because I mean,
No, I didn't even pay attention.
I can leave my house and no one takes photos
I'm just
of
fine.
me. So
But you know what? But that's the mindset, right?
Yeah.
And so there's the entitlement. There's all those kinds of things that we're breeding.
I read a statistic that this isn't even recent. This was like 10 years ago, back when this was all starting, where they would ask high school aged kids what they wanted to be, and the response was an influencer. I'm
Or
like,
YouTuber.
Yeah. I'm like, a content creator. So it went from everyone being unique and wanting to have their own goals and aspirations to like, I want to be famous on social media. And it's like, oh, it's
Yeah.
just that easy? It's just
Yeah.
that easy
Yeah.
to be famous on social media.
But that's their drive and their desire. And so, and you know what? If that's what you want to do, then tell me what your why is. And I do have some young kids
I mean,
who are
that's
like,
a great question.
they're in fitness. I'm like, okay, so what is your why? If it's all about your photos, and I have these because I was a personal trainer for decades. I mean, I was a pioneer in the Midwest.
That on your resume.
Yeah, right.
Gosh, I'm gonna write down every time you tell me what you've done.
Owned a gym for years. I mean, the whole thing. But I saw this. It's kind of like these industries cannibalize themselves. What is the biblical serpent where it's like an abyss where it eats its own tail?
Oh yeah.
So that's what I feel like happens in a lot of these industries is because it's not about me. It's about what I can do for my clients. It's not about as a trainer. When I was a trainer, it wasn't about what I look like.
Right.
It was about how can I work and be in service to you.
Yeah.
Today, it's like everybody's ass. Can I say ass?
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
She said it, so.
Everybody's ass is all over Instagram about what I have a great, I'm like, that's great, but if that's your goal, you're missing the point of a fitness lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's longevity, it's skeletal muscle, it's all these things that create a better life. It's a keystone habit. But they don't have the conversations around this. And my big thing with these kids, I always dig in the families, what's your why?
Yeah.
I mean, everything that I've done that God's blessed me to do, I had a massive why. And then I might have, when I got to that point, I might have thought, okay, God, we're done. What's next? What else you got for me?
Well, these girls that are, and I'm going to take a little dig right now. So if this is you, I'm sorry. But the girls that are on social media and their filter is all the same, and it's them in a bikini, and it's them drinking a martini, it's them showing like what a glamorous life they have. The question that you ask, which is why, the answer it looks like is, I want people to be jealous of me. I want people to envy me. I want people to want my life. And it's like, why would you want that for other people?
Because it makes you feel better.
Yeah, and being a person that has a lot of accidental followers on social media, I look at the things I post and I make sure that it meets the goal to inspire people, to encourage people, to empower people, to give people a call to action. If I ever start posting really weird, cheesy, like, look at my perfect life, I'm like, I don't have a perfect life.
Yeah.
I don't want that to be the goal. That can't be fulfilling. Like, people take my photo all the time because
it's not.
What?
I mean, and that's why they take 500 photos and post one.
Right.
I
Yes.
mean, and I always tell my kids, if you're going to do that, I go, and I've worked with a lot of young women who have started out posting the wrong images. Posting for the follows and the likes. And if I post, half naked, I get these great followers. Right. If I post about a vacation I took with my family, nobody cares. And I always tell them, pick 3 topics and vet your photos through those 3 topics. So if one might be my faith, my family, and my fitness. So if they don't meet those 3 topics, don't post it.
Yeah.
Because that's going to keep you consistently cohesive with your content that you're building.
Right.
Otherwise, it's like you have a bad day, you found a great photo, and you're going to post it. Because you look good.
Yeah.
And then you want everybody to validate it.
Right.
But meanwhile, you're the least confident person in the room.
Yeah, interesting.
And it's, I mean, we break these whiteboards down about this, and I love it because the kids are vulnerable. I call them out, but it's really calling them to action to create change.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, are you happy? No. Do you have bad days? Yes. What is the one common denominator? Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of times it's their self-talk. A lot of it's generational trauma. It's families. It's, not having parents that they need. When they start to date, they start to look at, well, my dad was never there, so I never felt protected. So I picked the bad boy because I believe he can protect me when it's the last thing. And I love diving into these dating things. I mean, we do like align and define sessions with like young people are getting married really young. And we've consciously uncoupled quite a few because there was no alignment.
Right.
It was just like, well, we want to get married as looks. I go, you're putting more effort into your dress and the wedding than your life.
Yeah.
I go, let's dive into the
that's
life.
been happening for centuries.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And so, but that's why the divorce rate is, and that's why people are able to attack the nuclear family, is because we have statistics to prove it, right? It's like, marriage isn't any good. I said, no, marriage is great with the right one.
Yeah,
I go, and friendship is a foundation for marriage.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what carries you through the difficult times when you're like, I don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
But you're like, no.
But I need to talk to you because you're my friend.
Right, exactly.
I'm mad at you, so I want to talk to you because you're my friend.
Because I know I can be me, and there's authenticity in that. And all these messages within the coaching message is so important today because, number one, the kids see, they know something's wrong in their soul. They know it is. You know, and whether it's a journey of faith, trying to find their relationship with Christ, or whether it is, trying to heal their families, or they see their family and go, I don't want that. I go, that's the beautiful news, is you don't have to. You can create something totally different for your family.
Yeah.
But you have to know what you don't want. And sometimes you got to go through those experiences to know that, to know, okay, what can I build on that's better and improve every generation. I want my girls to improve upon what I did. I want them to.
Well, that's a whole other point of the social media aspect is the kids are looking at social media influencers and saying, oh, that's what I want. That's what I want. It's like, but you don't even know what you're really getting because that's just a feed. That's not real life. Neither are reality shows.
No.
But that's what they're using to
scripted.
base on, like, well, that's the kind of life I want. I want to be like Miley Cyrus and party every weekend and be famous. It's like, do you though?
You
She
don't.
sure doesn't look satisfied
Well,
to
and
me.
not only that, they don't see the consequences of that life. It's like I always tell people, the number one thing, the most important decision you'll ever make is who you marry. Because you're going to battle.
Yep.
At every step you're going to battle. And it can make or break. If you've got, a man that just strictly goes after the physical and the sexual part of it, good luck when things get rough in your life.
Exactly.
And by the same thing with women, if you want to be a wife and a mom and you want to stay home and be traditional and your husband doesn't align with that, these are the conversations that people aren't having until you have to have them. And a lot of times they don't go well, and kids don't see that solid relationship, anymore. That is, they work together, they're partners. If I step in, if I step out, my husband steps in.
Right.
If he steps out, I step in. And it's difficult to do, but it's anything worth it is difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's what the biggest thing with Gen Z is they're seeking that message because a lot of them don't have the examples. I do think that men are getting better at the leadership role. I think there's a lot, because people saw how out of whack it was because we had such passive men.
Yeah.
And
What's
such,
happening
and, yeah,
now.
and so all that stuff, and then such feminized men. And and I always break it down in 4 components. So you have the biological factor, which is our environmental toxins, the lack of testosterone, that's biological. You have the social factor because they have no skills. They have no skills to ask a girl out or date or interpersonal communication.
Yep.
Then you have the physical part of it, which is, are you taking the strength of a man and your body seriously? And then you have the spiritual part. Are you a godly man? Are you a biblically driven man? So if you look at those 4 components, and you look at someone like that, and that's why I say in that window, if you build that young man.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
That is turning away what culture wants you to go for, you'll have a successful life. Not without problems, you'll have a successful life.
Yeah, because there's few and far between, but there are women out there doing the same thing, breaking themselves down. And am I doing what it takes to prepare myself to be a mother?
Right.
Am I taking care of myself physically? Am I following God? I gotta write those things down after the episode. Remind me. That's a great post.
But it's true because we have like our I mean, the new age and, all the mystical stuff and everything just completely mind melded us because it's like self-love. No, self-discipline is self-love.
Right.
Period. I mean, if you can discipline your life, you'll have a successful life. But it was that language that happened for so many years that got into everybody's going to sing Kumbaya at the end of the day. No, we're not.
Yeah.
You're going to be called to stand your ground. I
Yep.
mean, you know that.
Yeah.
100%. So it's like whatever that looks like. But if you don't know who you're becoming, and then you have, I always call these 4 pillars of destruction with young men, which is gaming, weed, alcohol, and porn. Yeah. Those 4 things are coming after our young men. But the thing that is so frustrating to watch is that they are giving themselves permission to participate in the very thing that they want to buck up against, which is the system. I go, and people always say, well, the system's broken. I said, no. System's working exactly the way that it was
System's doing
designed.
what it wants to do. Trust me.
It's doing
You're falling prey
exactly.
to it, and I'm watching it happen. in real life.
But then you post all these things, but you live in contradiction behind the scenes.
Right.
And I see that part. That's why being a coach, I get privileged to see that part, and then we try to connect those and eliminate the contradiction.
Yeah.
And actually walk out your word.
I did a post probably like a year ago that my husband goes, "Ooh, you're going to get a lot of crap for that." And I was like, I don't care. And it stemmed from visiting my chiropractic office and the lady at the front desk, knowing who I was or knowing my fight or something, and then saying, "Wish I could get my husband in the fight. Boy, he loves to play video games." And she's like, if you want to fight, there's a real one going on. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's so right. And I made this whole video on Instagram saying, how come you're willing to sit in that chair and fight, and act like a man on a game? Why can't you put that down and stand up and get the appreciation and the love and the adoration of all of humanity if you were to step up and fight the fight that's actually happening right now in your
Well, you just
country,
said the key
in your
word.
family, in your house?
Acting. Because otherwise there's action. Right? So as long as you act the part and look the part, that's all that the world sees.
And they don't need you to actually be the part.
No.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things too is when you look at men and you depending upon the age group, it's like and I always talk about this with my parents. It's like so women it's funny. If you go through abuse, and we talked about this, if you go through something like this, you take on a masculine identity, right? So you protect yourself. I have to do it myself. That's what women do. Men don't take on a feminine identity when something goes wrong, but now they're being feminized because then it's not the lack, it's not the toxic masculinity isn't real, it's the lack of it that's toxic.
Yeah.
So, or that's any of the boundary that you want to put in place. But I think that's where we have to go back. It's like, I always jokingly tell my husband, like when we were first married, he was working so much, and I had my first daughter, and we were married 5 years before I had my daughter, and I was the entrepreneur. I was building the business. I had my gym and all that kind of stuff. And then it was funny because I would jokingly say, "There's no pants laying around the house because I'll put them on," because But then my question then was, my work was, just because I can doesn't mean I should.
Yeah.
You got to give room in that gap of that grace to go, I need him in that gap. Just because I can, because I'm a strong female, I will. And so my big task for raising girls was that I needed them to be strong and resilient, that if something were to happen, they could step in, but to know themselves well enough to know that when they're a strong feminine, they will surrender that to an even stronger male.
Yeah.
The problem in dating in the world today is women think they're like, I mean, they're paper, right? It's like they think they're super strong. I'm like, really? Go to the front lines of the battleground.
Exactly.
Go dig up ditches. Go work on the sewers.
Go say something that goes against what the crowd is saying. Just go into the crowd right there and say it. See what happens.
Yeah. And that's the thing. They say it, but they can't walk it out. Right. I mean, it's like even joking at my house. It's like there's things I do inside the house and I will not do outside the house. That's my husband's, and so let's define gender roles,
Yeah.
So I mean, so it's basically I'm like, I'm not going to go dig up a ditch and do manual labor. Can I if I'm called to it? Of course I can. I was raised on a farm. Absolutely.
Let me get my nails off really quick.
Exactly. Let me get my lashes done. But then it comes down to that beautiful yin and yang, the way that God created our relationship is that, I mean, wasn't it Moses' wife, or eventually his wife, that she was the shepherd? She was out because her father had no sons. So she was out tending to the sheep. And so again, you can do it. But the beautiful synergy of marriage is a strong masculine and a strong feminine. I'm emotionally stronger than my husband. He's physically stronger than I am. He will do things I won't do.
Right.
You know, I'll just be like, no. And so there's that drive and that virility that our men are it's being taken away from him. Like I said, all four of those categories.
Yep.
And some of it is biological with the environmental and the testosterone levels. That takes away your vitality too.
Yeah, there's some alarming studies that have come out about the amount of testosterone men had in like even 1980 to 1960 and now. And it is drastic.
You go back and look at yearbooks from like 25 years ago, like they were 30 years old. I mean, and all my young men I coach, that is one that they have to get their blood work done, and I need to see their testosterone levels. And I know I'm probably one of the only coaches that does that.
I think that's amazing.
No, it is, because I mean, so the way that you measure testosterone is between 300 and 1200, which I think is hilarious. The range is so big.
Yeah.
And all these ranges are taken from 6 societies to begin with. So it's really individually what your blood work looks like. And it's just a snapshot. I have young men who are 18, 19. Theirs is at like 400. You should be pegging 800.
Yeah, because it's supposed to drop as you get older, so it should be at its prime around that time, right? Like at its max.
And that's why I always tell the guys, I go, let's get your baseline. Let's see where you're at. And then when we look at it and they're like, what the hell, T? I go, yeah. And they're smaller in stature.
This is why you're crying every night.
Exactly. They're smaller in stature. They're very sensitive. And if they were raised by a single mom, they're more emotional. They lack the discipline, the ability to discipline their emotions. And they're more sensitive. And when we start having these conversations, you can't really dive into that without being humble as a parent.
Yeah.
To go, and I mean, even like when I raised, so my oldest daughter's vaccine injured, I shared with you. And so I had to become a different version to her than I was with my younger daughter, and then she was my biggest teacher. She was my biggest teacher on myself and knowing, wow, I really got to work on this. I have to get better at this part of it. I know what I mean, but how am I communicating it?
Yeah.
And then there were days where you just walk in and you just take over. It's like, I don't see any other way out. And then there's other ways where I got to be effective. I really got to be effective.
Yeah.
And so when you have those conversations generationally and you share that, it changes the game on how we see our families, how we see relationships, and how we parent. And I think that more than anything is what my goal is to actually have really healthy parents, to have healthy kids.
Yeah.
And then the next generation benefits.
Right.
Because we're seeding our kids. We won't see the harvest sometimes.
No.
There's just no way.
So what's your first step as far as like the trans movement and it's taking over children in Gen Z. How do we as a community even like begin to start dismantling that?
So it's funny. So I had a mom call me a while ago and she said, "Are you a gender affirming coach?" And I said, "Look in your pants." No, I'm serious.
Perfect answer.
Because that's truth.
Yep.
Okay.
It is.
That's
biology and science. And
exactly.
nature.
It's truth. I don't care what you want to say with the delusion. It's truth. And so she goes, "Okay, I need to hire you to work with my daughter." And then I had someone's sons I was working with. And so the conversation has to start in truth. It has to start in being rooted in truth. Because if you're a warrior mom, you got to learn. And that's why I said my question was always, am I effective? It's like I can come after my kids and yell and scream, "I want you this my way, this way, that way." But the goal is to listen to them. And what do you see? What are you hearing? What's influencing you? What's your internal dialogue about this? What questions do you have? What are you willing to listen to? What are you willing to actually open your mind up to? And if you look at, years ago, back in 1980 or 1990, 4 out of 5 kids would outgrow this quote unquote phase.
Absolutely.
It's not a phase anymore because there's a nefarious movement.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. If you look at it, plus with the social media part of it, they can't ever get away from it.
Yeah.
It's never away, and then it becomes their language, and then it becomes their identity. And when your identity is in question, you're in crisis. And so then if you go to what I can, and I'm sorry, but not sorry. Whenever you look at the modalities of therapy and counseling, a lot of them are affirming, to their demise, the issues with their kids. But I see it when kids come to me after 5 years of therapy. And I'm like, what did you learn about yourself? Where did you go? And we revolve instead of evolve out of things.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that around the trans movement, number one, they are experimenting on kids. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
And if you can't see that, then the work is the parent. Because you have to, and it's interesting, highly educated PhD families are the ones that are pushing this more, which is fascinating to me.
So weird, yeah.
It is weird. It is weird.
You're supposed to do no harm. You're supposed to be educated enough to know that this is an issue, not a
But think about this. And I always say this, I will take the advice of a farmer over a PhD any day.
Yeah.
Because a farmer has critical thinking. They have to learn to work with their environment and their world around them. They have to communicate differently. If you're in an institutional education, you've been taught the same way for years and years, and nobody's questioned it. It comes out of the books, and everyone in that environment learns the same thing.
Yep.
And so if you look at just the conversations around that, and then how are we ever going to get out of this? It's going to take people who, number one, are rooted in faith, because it is biblical. This is not political. I don't care what anybody
100%.
has to say. It is biblical. And that makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable because of the confusion that's been created around it. And I understand that. I get it. I go, but you have to identify, number one, we create biases about ourselves. So like the life that you've lived, the life that I live, I have a natural bias around certain things. So then my work is to become neutral and to discipline my emotions to be able to be logically communicating these things. So you get to that point. So then that's my work, right? And so as a parent, when you see these movements that are coming after your kid, if you're jumping on the bandwagon in the name of tolerance and acceptance, and I want my kid to be kind and all those kinds of things, you have to look at the underlying message, because kind to who? Kind to the person with a gun to their head?
Yeah.
No, you have to stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself. And I told my girls from day one, I would rather you piss someone off than to be quiet when you're uncomfortable around someone.
Oh, I love it.
I would much rather you do that. I said, I'll take the heat for that.
Yeah.
Because I want them to know that they can do that. And maybe you judged wrong. Maybe something was wrong.
You can apologize later.
That's exactly what it is. Trust your gut.
Yeah, but you can't stop if someone is trying to indoctrinate you or teach you something, and you, out of kindness, allow them. You can't undo what they have now planted in your brain.
Well, and what is really I love definitions of words. Like, what does it mean to be kind? If you look at kindness, it's treating each person with respect, right? Okay, I want to be kind, but it doesn't mean that I have to think the way that you think.
Well, yes, and also, okay, I should reciprocate your kindness. Is it kind that a certain community, teacher, group is telling, like, let's just say me, for example, you're mean and hateful because you won't oblige my mental disorder.
Right.
So now I'm the one that's mean and hateful. I say that you calling me mean and hateful isn't kind.
Right.
But yet I'm supposed to reciprocate kindness to you.
Right.
That's called rolling over, and that's very, very different.
Well, and people who have gone through a lot, we talked about this last time, the adversity, what you've gone through, you're kind of born with one eyebrow up. You're kind of born with like going, wait a minute, you have a different discernment. Someone that had not had to deal with any kind of difficulties in life and has never built resilience or confidence in certain areas, they tend to go with the crowd. They tend to be felt. Well, that's Gen Z right now.
Yeah.
Have they had a lot of difficulties? Yes, they have. They've dealt with different things than we have. But they haven't been addressed and educated on life skills. They don't have the skills to navigate quote unquote life today. And so then where do they get that from? Their homes. How strong is that home? Well, obviously we know it's not. So there's all these layers. It's like these layer effects that we have to look at these things. And so when you look at the trans movement, you look at, number one, the message, social media. Was it accidental that everyone was locked down in 2020 on TikTok and it blew up in the algorithms? No, it wasn't by accident. No. Absolutely not. So then you go down to, okay, so then is there a level of, I'm curious, this is weird, and then you start to look, your algorithms are built, they reinforce your narrative, they reinforce your story, and now all of a sudden that's your identity. And that's what happens to these kids, especially, I have kids that are 14 years old that come in, and the mom and dad were together, and the dad is extremely passive, and the mother then is completely overly assertive, and which I understand it, I get it. And she's taken on the masculine role, and so then the daughter sees the dynamics. These kids are wicked smart. So they see the dynamics, and so then she's like, well, I would rather be with a girl at 14. And then we start talking, I go, but what do you think? She goes, well, I think she's beautiful. I go, I think a lot of women are beautiful. I go, I'm the first person to point out, oh my God, she's gorgeous. I go, am I sexually attracted? No. Is there an admiration? Yes. So what's the difference? And we don't have these conversations. And when you're a young girl, you look at another girl and you think their makeup's beautiful. So it's an admiration. But those lines have been blurred. And then if you don't have a strong mother and father influence, masculine, feminine influence to define those for you, you get confused. Yeah. And then like this particular dad, he goes, well, I caught her drinking the other day. And I go, at 14, and he goes, well, I just told her, life is hard. And I'm like, so as a father, you didn't put that line in. Why? Because you drink every day. So it's through osmosis
So it's
of our
okay
environment.
to drown your sorrows this way, even at 14 when it's illegal and not allowed. And I could,
But it's socially accepted.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the slippery slope that we're at. And it's so funny when people say, you're so radical in your parenting and your thoughts. I go, am I really? I know, I laugh.
I think it's funny that you're called radical.
I do too. But I said to them, I said, but you know what? I go, if that's the case, isn't that a good thing to protect your child that way?
Yeah. Wouldn't you rather be
Wouldn't you?
overprotective and know that
Yeah.
later they survived X, Y, and Z than to just have a 14-year-old drinking and going, well, she'll figure it out later.
Well, because
No,
that's
you
a
can't
gateway.
do that.
That's a gateway. I mean,
Yeah.
from one thing to the next. And then, of course, she started to have sleepovers. And then it was the girl that she was attracted to. And then now there was sexual exchanges. And so then the parents are like, wait a minute. I go, well, that's my point. It's much easier to raise healthy kids than repair adults.
Yeah.
And sexual trauma, which is what they're doing in the trans movement, the whole conversation is sexual. That's what I think people don't understand.
Yeah.
They don't. I go, the pride flag is sexual. The conversation of your pronouns is sexual. It's all a sexual conversation.
Right.
So I mean, the drag queen stuff, all of it. So you are taking the most destructive trauma, and you're intentionally putting it under the guise of kindness, tolerance, and acceptance.
Right.
This is going to be difficult, and it is not going to end well for these kids.
Yeah.
And parents
It's not
have to
ending
then,
well.
No,
Or
and
it
parents
didn't
have
take
to
long
equip
to
them.
start seeing the repercussions of this.
And I have parents that say, "How do I combat?" And then we get in the room and we start working on what that is. Because if the warrior doesn't change, the battle won't be won. So if you look at the battlegrounds today and you're using old skills to address a new problem, it's not going to be fixed, and we're not going to have solutions. So we as warriors in this battle, whether we're moms or business owners or wives or whatever, or fathers, we have to then look at ourselves first.
Yeah.
And are we equipped for this? And if we're not, let's have a conversation around what that would look like.
Yeah, or hire Tracy, and she's clearly equipped for it.
No, I just have such a heart for this family, for the families and the world and these young kids. I mean, my husband sometimes, he's just like, he looks at me and goes, it consumes you. I go, you know what? It does. But I'm okay with that.
Well, yeah.
I go, as an entrepreneur, yeah, I'll go run headfirst into anything and just get it done, kind of like we talked about, like no matter what it is, I'm going to get it done. But when you're looking at a future generation and you're looking at these beautiful, brilliant minds that are creating beautiful lives as long as they're left to and led to, but they're being disrupted and dismantled and completely distracted by so many nefarious things. And these things are so destructive. And one of the cool whiteboards that we do on the whiteboard is the kids have to identify their distractions in life, and are they destructive or productive? And it's fun when you see them kind of put them in the different buckets, because they're like, well, I didn't think this was that bad. I go, well, how do you feel when you're done with it? Has it fed your soul or depleted your soul? Who are you becoming? And then we identify 4 declarations, like, what do you want in your life? Well, I want to be a really good father, and I want to be a good husband. I want to be a business owner. I go, okay, then what are you doing today to create that? Because it happens now. And everyone's lied to Gen Z and just teens in general to say, screw around now. Have fun now. Do all. I go, no, because the habits you're creating now will dictate your adulthood.
Yeah.
And they don't get that message, like, oh, he's just sowing his oats. No, he's not just sowing his oats. He's creating a complete
pattern.
mindset and a pattern.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love these generations. I love these young kids, because it's like, if we can get in there with some really good language, some good self-discipline rules, and all these things, and go, you're not. It's so funny when people say, well, I don't want to deprive myself of anything. I said, of what? What are you depriving yourself of? Success, a healthy mindset, a healthy body, and healthy relationships by saying no to these things? No is not. It's an abundant word.
Yeah.
Because on the other side of that is a good life.
And what's the sense of entitlement? Like, I don't know, I was raised, if I wanted something, I had to earn it. I had to work for it. Like, too much self-love, too much reciprocation, and having whatever I wanted would lead to no motivation to actually have to go out and earn it, right? It's like, I mean, at 18, 20, I remember thinking, ooh, checks. And like, he thought that the checks could just get written and it was money.
Tear it out of
And
that
then
little thing, and here it is.
First $36 overdraft fee, you're like, oh, okay, I have to go back and I have to earn these things.
Yeah.
But this generation just seems like, no, I deserve this. It's like, okay, what have you done to deserve it?
And you know what's sad about that, Lindsay, is that the parents, I think their intention is so good They want to do things for their kids that they perceive they didn't have.
To their own detriment.
Yeah, but I told them, I said, but in doing that, you're taking away their drive, their ambition. You're taking away any of their why. It's like when I got my license and my dad said, hey, you're going to pay for your car. And he gave us this, like, we had an extra cab truck with a horse trailer. That was my truck to go to school, right? And so, but then I look back, of course, the distance gives you the beautiful knowledge. And my daughter, my youngest one, who's 19 now, she's funny because she said she wanted something the other day. And I said, you know what? Even if I hadn't, I wouldn't give you the money.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I know you wouldn't. And then like 3 days later,
good.
I know,
I'm glad you know that.
3 days later, she goes, I know why you wouldn't, because you want me to build it. I go, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but then she's around all these other young women who are getting $1,000 a week as a stipend from their parents and getting all this kind of stuff. And they have no concept.
No.
You know, and so then
the parents don't understand how badly they're hurting their child, because what happens when you finally decide, hey, I lost my job, I've got to cut you off.
Yeah.
You've raised a child that does not know how to function in society and buy and work and earn their own money to do anything. You've
and they don't
dismantled
have,
them,
not only that, we're watching it in our government, right?
Yeah.
Businesses fails, government bails them out. I mean, my dad was a business owner. If there was no money, we didn't take a paycheck. Our family suffered first because it's our responsibility.
Yeah.
But I saw that firsthand, but now you see the other way around. So then the kids don't realize the repercussions or consequences for this.
Yeah.
And so part of what we do too is life skills. We teach them how to manage their money. We bring in speakers. We bring in people, entrepreneurs, to pour into these kids and these families because they're lacking success skills. I mean, the girls don't even know how to cook. I mean, I've gone to clients' homes to teach them how to clean their bathrooms.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, yeah, I don't want to do that again, by the way.
That service is off of the menu.
It's off the menu. But the thing is that I saw there was a lack, you know?
Yeah.
And I, like, during the whole COVID part of it, I just felt like I was in such triage with these families and these kids, and it's like, okay, God, I'll jump in. I want to be of service. And now it's like shifting after 3.5 years of this and realizing the real crisis in my mind is our young women. The men, yes, but I think the men are getting a lot of good information. I think there's a lot of good stuff going on for our young men. Whether they grasp it or not, I don't know. But the language is there. But the young women, I think they've so confused feminism and female liberation and female empowerment and all this other kind of stuff. I'm going to pose naked. I go, for who?
Yeah.
It's not for you. You know, and if it's for you, you want to save it when you're 80 and look back and thought, wow, I looked good.
Right.
It shouldn't be
then
posted.
You don't need to post it. Just
exactly.
Tuck it away in that little shoebox under your bed.
And I understand that. But the whole thing is that there's this language that's based around it's quote unquote empowerment or this feminism versus a feminine force of nature. Your feminine energy is the most powerful energy for a woman. You know, that's your superpower.
And women, young girls, do not realize what a privilege it is to be able to capture that force of nature, and we can use it to our advantage. Oh, yeah. I don't think that, I'm not even afraid to say that. There's been many times I'm like, let me take the car in to get fixed, because I'm going to put my lipstick on and I'm going to work my femininity.
Well, but again, that goes back to a superpower. You know, it's like, how is it, and why do you think the trans movement is, again, women don't get it. I go, women are still trying to be erased, guys. It just looks different, okay? It's been happening since day one because of our feminine power that we have. And I was talking to my son-in-law the other day, and we were talking about, like, me as a mom and the girls that I've raised and the girls that I'm so privileged to coach. And we were talking about this message. He goes, you know, the worth of a woman, and I was like, that stands for wow, by the way. So we wrote this down. I go, the worth of a woman is really priceless. I said, because as a stay-at-home mom, if you had to pay for everything that a woman can do, you know, between raising children, their emotional care, you know, we've heard the joking stuff, taxi driver, you're this, you're that, but you're nurturing the next generation of life givers, you know, teaching them sustainable cooking skills, teaching them how to do these things, how to take care of themselves, how to meal prep, how to holistically take care of yourself through natural medicines. These educations that been said, we outsource all the white coats. And so we need to insource some things for our own families. And that's our role.
And by the way, I don't know who needs to hear this. This is satisfying. Being a mom, being a wife, having a nice home. It's not satisfying if other people see it and appreciate you. It's satisfying when you've done it, when it's not under a stressful situation, when you don't feel forced or coerced or stuck. When you choose to find a good husband and you choose to have children, you are ultimately satisfied. I will guarantee you that girls who make a living on their OnlyFans are not satisfied.
No.
That's why they're scrolling and looking for the nonstop comments of how
Well, that's like
attractive they
the
are.
next dopamine high.
Because that's not satisfying. Who cares if a complete stranger says, you've got a great butt?
Yeah.
Like, okay, great. Well, of course I do. That's why I posted it.
Exactly.
I'm like,
they're primally going against what they're made in that 18 to 25-year-old. You're made to be looking for a partner. That's that age. But then enter in birth control and enter in all the medications that are altering. There's synthetic alterations of your own DNA and your own biology and your own hormones. And so a lot of times, I have a lot of young girls who they get off of their Adderall and their Lexapro and all the other kind of stuff and all their birth control, and then the guy they're with, they're like, I'm not attracted anymore. I said, because it was a synthetic connection. And I go, and that's proven, I said, because it's changing your hormones. So we're attracted through our hormones and pheromones. So if they're altered, then the attraction would be altered.
Yeah.
So these are conversations that and that's why I said Gen Z is just built different, because they're going, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. So there's this beautiful window, I believe, that we have, that if we're willing to have these conversations, and I'm not for everyone, and I piss people off, and I'm fine with that.
I think that's great.
I mean,
if you're not pissing people off, you're not doing your job.
I would rather you be angry, but you're thinking, than me regret not speaking.
Right.
Because I love these families and these kids that I get to work with, because that's our future. I look at my girls, and they're right in that Gen Z, and my son-in-law, when he asked, this was such a great thing. I don't think he'll care if I share. But when he was with my daughter for a while and they broke up, and she was devastated, and he was devastated too, but we didn't see him for a while. It was probably like 8 or 9 months. And then he came back in the picture. And so this daughter is the one that's vaccine injured. So she's completely bald, eyelashes, eyebrows, has no hair, alopecia. She's 20. She's stunning. But anyway, and so some of the guys that had asked her out, they had met her when she had a wig on. So she shared that she didn't have it, and they just wouldn't show up. They just left. So then she right away thinks, after having this beautiful relationship with this guy and planning all these wonderful things, she thought, okay, he left,
Yeah.
And then he shows up again. They start dating again, getting very serious, conversation of engagements and everything. And I'm just like, oof, And then
where did he go? Are you worried? Like, where did he go for 8 months, and will he go
I
again?
wasn't so. I was worried about that, but I was also worried about like her getting married really young, which she'd always talked about being a young wife and a young mom. So I honored that. I was skeptical, of course, but I honored that, especially in today's world. And I'm like, okay, this is what you want. This is what you're built for. This is what you were raised for. I have to honor that. And so it was funny because we had this conversation. So the night he took my husband and I out for dinner to ask us to marry her, I of course jumped in and forgot the masculine side. I jumped in and I go, wait, I got a question. I go, why did you leave? Why did you leave her? And he goes, because I wasn't worthy of marrying your daughter or being a member of your family.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to cry.
And I was like, wow. I know.
You're like, of all the answers that could be right, that's the only one.
I was ready to
that's
come
the
out
answer.
swinging, right? And so I was like going.
He's like, suck it.
Exactly. And seriously. And then I said to him, I said, my only question is this, is that she's not lived on her own. She's going from my house to your home. And she will build you a beautiful home. I know what she's capable of. I said, but I just am concerned about that independent spirit, that I want her to also have the strength of that spirit. And he was so beautiful the way he explained it. He said, but that's what I don't want, is the world to get there. I want to build our world. And it was like, okay,
That's
I go,
wow.
I'm behind you guys. And
You're
so
like,
Tom and
I
I
agree.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
give our approval.
Exactly. And so we did, of course. And then they got married in the middle of a desert with 12 people,
That's so
it was
awesome.
beautiful. But then it came down to my husband works with him, mentors him on stuff like that. Like some of the other young men I coach, my husband jumps into and helps. And so it just kind of came down to this, this beautiful thing that we talk about, walking it out in real time and convicted about it. And they're very faith driven, they have a beautiful little boy. And so it came down to wanting to do things the way that biblically, we've been talked about and we've seen it in real time. And it's not going to be without trials and tribulations and all those things. And then my younger daughter's watching, which is great. It's a great example, and they have a beautiful relationship because it was rough going through life with no hair as a girl in Scottsdale. It's a whole nother podcast, literally. But
Scottsdale nonetheless.
Yeah, exactly. But, again, it's like it teaches you resilience, your trials and everything teaches you resilience. And now she gets to then pay that forward. And so there's a lot on Gen Z's shoulders. I do believe they're built for the storm. I do believe they're built different. I do believe the task is on our shoulders as parents and business leaders and voices to say, okay, how can we help?
Yeah.
What can we do?
Do you counsel parents without their kids?
Oh,
Are
yeah.
you able to? Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I do a lot of the cool thing about the parent stepping in, which is very unique. Most parents look at their kids and go, "You're the problem." Very few parents look in the mirror
Tracy
and go,
rolls in and goes, "No, it's you."
Very
Bad
few
news,
parents,
first session.
It was me. I mean, it was me. I mean,
yeah.
most parents don't look in the mirror and go, I'm contributing. Right. And so when they do.
Or, I did raise them this way, so no wonder they're acting this way.
Well, my favorite is the dads that are like, my daughter's a princess, she's this, it's tutus, tiaras, until you're 13 and it's not so cute.
Yeah.
I go, but you told her she was up until, you got 13 years to unlearn that behavior.
Yeah.
And that's a key word in homes is that we have to unlearn some things. And sometimes we pivot, we change our ideals, we change our thoughts, and we should be able to do that. I mean, if you're not questioning a lifestyle, you're not evolving. It's like I was vegan for a few years. I mean, I was completely raised on a farm, butchering our own cattle, doing and then I went vegan, thinking because, wow, factory farming is horrible what they're doing. Yeah, but regenerative farming is great. So that's why it's in a lot of the information I do. But the thing about that is that I needed to question my conviction. And that's how I decided to shift. And so we have to learn to do that. Otherwise, I mean, imagine waking up and going, your entire life is a lie. Everything you thought you knew, which is your identity. And then you're like, but I want to learn. I want to grow.
But also imagine waking up every day and going, no, I think I know everything there is to know. I'm good. Like
I'm living a lie.
Like no one
Right?
should be thinking that.
No,
It's
no.
impossible.
And that's why I think when I work with parents, they're open to looking at things going, what could I do better?
Yeah.
And that takes humility. I get it.
And that's who I think you're going to reach, like with this podcast, is parents who are like, I really don't want my kids to succumb to whatever it is that I might be accidentally teaching them.
Right.
I got to make sure they are grounded. Where do I start?
We have a courageous parenting lecture series that we do. They can download, and it's super cool because there's exercises in there. It's all experiential because there is no 1, 2, 3 step. Right? There is no XYZ to get there to parenting. Right. You have to learn to navigate yourself first as a parent, and then, I mean, even before you're a parent, right? I love when I have young kids that come in that are just married. I want to be a really good parent? What does that look like? And of course it changes on the fly. But, I love it when parents come in and they go, I know something's off, and I know that I need to listen better. I did 10 rules of kids. I have to send this to you. I interviewed 15 kids, and I asked them top 10 things they need from their parents. It was so awesome.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, it was so awesome.
Yeah.
Because
I'm making a list. You have a to-do list, by the way. You like,
I'll get
connect
you
me to Carol, get me the new skin or whatever it is, and then the 10. I need the courageous parenting.
Always.
I need all these things. I'm going to put it all in this description. So.
But it's cool because you realize there's resources, right?
Yeah,
Otherwise, I mean, years ago, nobody talked about it. You just continued and perpetuated the stuff in your home, and then you got out and you were like,
or you go rent a self-help book and hope that the doctor that wrote it is aligned with you.
And that's what I think is cool about now is like, but I always tell parents it's experiential. It's like, my favorite thing is like a psychiatrist or psychologist who's never had kids but teaches you how to parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you've got a single person giving married advice. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
You can't. And so I think that's why it's a beautiful thing where all the layers that God's placed on me and allowed me to be in service at this point.
Absolutely.
That I get to then look at these families and go, gosh, how can I be effective? How can I be in service? Because I want that communication back. And the thing that's different about what we do is that when you see a problem, I don't divide the child out of the home. I connect the home back together around the child, which I think a lot of modalities, they take the child. Parents aren't allowed to talk to the therapist. They're not allowed to know what's going on, which I think.
Warning.
Exactly.
It's a red flag.
But that is the typical modality of that, And so when we look at, and the parents, when they do, like I do an 8-session battle plan with kids. And so when we get that like halfway through, I'm like, parents, it's your turn to come in. You need to hear, and then the kids.
Now we're going to deal with the
PDFs.
real problem, which is you.
And anything I send the kids, I have 8 different curriculums. We get PDFs supporting on like mental toughness and resiliency and time management and health and nutrition, wellness. It's all in there. And so then I send whatever the kid gets, the parent gets too.
Yeah.
And then I always tell the kids, I will, if it's something in common. confidence, I will encourage you to tell your parent. I won't, but you need to.
Yeah.
And then if it's something you're not sure of, let's build you to where you have the skill and communication to advocate for yourself.
Good.
Because all those things make a difference. And that's why coaching is very different than a lot of the modalities. And I have friends of mine who are therapists and counselors. I coach some of their kids. And I always ask them, I invite you to question your industry, because where does your license stop and your morals start? And I think that's a question that every industry today has to ask themselves.
Right.
And
are you abiding by the rules to the point where you're compromising morals and values?
And children, to be honest.
Yes,
no,
absolutely.
It's a huge thing. But I do believe that there's an opportunity today to do differently and to do better. And if what we were doing was working, we wouldn't be here.
That's right. Oh my gosh. How am I going to cut this all up into amazing reels on Instagram? Okay, tell people where they can find you, your website,
so tracylmartin.com is the main website. And
Tracy
then
has an E in it.
Tracey. My mom decided to be difficult.
Yep.
And then officially Tracy Martin is Instagram. Yep. And then Raising Greatness radio show on Faith Talk 1360 is on every Thursday at 4. And then other than that, it's just a lot of great information that they can download our newsletter. We've got like the 10-step. I told you about the 10 things that kids identified.
Yep,
that's on our that's in the bio on the Instagram. It's just great conversation to question and go, how am I doing?
Yeah, I think so too. That's what I want to do. I want to look at it now. My kids are young and go, when they say that they needed this from me, I want to know that I've already provided it.
Well, you get out ahead of it. You answer the questions that haven't been asked yet.
Yes. I'm excited. All right.
Like cheering my Hydro Flask.
What are we cheersing to?
We're going to cheers to Gen Z and the storm they're going through. Cheers.
Cheers.
And their parents.
and their
parents.
All right, Tracy, you rock. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for tuning in to the Patriot Barbie podcast. Follow me on Truth Social at The Patriot Barbie and Instagram at the.patriot.barbie. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with your friends. You can find this show, my book Targeted, and my apparel line on www.patriotbarbie.com. God bless America, and God bless you.
Are you worried about spike proteins and how they may impact your health? Are you looking for help? The Wellness Company has an answer in the form of our clean, pure, all-natural spike formula developed by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough. The Wellness Company's spike formula includes the incredible nattokinase, dandelion root, black sativa extract, green tea, and iris sea moss. Even better, the spike formula by the Wellness Company is vegan, gluten-free, and made right here in the U.S., so you know that you can trust and rely on it if you're concerned about spike proteins.